can't decide whether the hat is like the coolest look ever or the worst look ever. Just commit to a hat. Okay. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Big Creatrix Energy with me, Gabriella Rosie. Today I am sharing with you my top books on creativity. And let me be honest with you, I have so many books. I read so many books. If you follow me on Instagram, you're probably seeing the stacks of books that are around my house and constantly like on rotation. I read a lot, but that being said, this is a really short list of books that I have to share with you today. There are literally 3 books that I really want to recommend to anybody who wants to expand your creativity, if you want to explore your creativity and build a really strong creative practice in place for yourself to explore and express. These are the books that I think specifically allow you to expand your own creative practice and your own version of expression. There are so many other books, and I can do so many other videos sharing you other books that I have in my collection that can be more broadly on the topic of creativity. But I really think these 3 work so well in conjunction with each other, but they feel like together they form a big picture of creativity, or at least how I see creativity. Bruh. Every time she gets this one specific toy, please, Vivian. These 3 books really work well together. I feel like they give you a practice, they give you a way to build a habit of your creativity, and they also give you the tools that allow you to explore how you want to, actually create things, not just ideas or more practical ways of creativity. This is almost like it gives you a way of thinking about creativity and about thinking about your life and the things that you want to make. I'm going to get into it obviously as I talk about each book, but I feel like the combination of these 3 books provides a really rounded view. I feel like these 3 books have really helped me explore my own expression, or explore. They're not just telling me things to do or ways to be creative. They're giving me the tools to figure out creativity on my own. And that's ultimately the way to truly be creative, of figuring out, okay, what are the lens that I see the world? How can I understand the world in my own way? And how can I interpret that into the things that I share and create with other people? And also, like, as a general note on reading books, as I said, like, I do read quite a lot of books, but I'm also like, my relationship to reading has changed and evolved so much. I used to very much be in the vanity metrics of like trying to read as many books as possible and whizzing through them. And that's something that I really want to offer an alternative to here specifically, because you can read and you can, learn tips to be creative all day long. You can watch videos about being creative all day long. But the only thing that's going to help you figure out your expression and the things that you want to create and finding your own style is taking maybe these principles or taking these practices, but actually applying them to your life, really taking action and creating things and figuring out through the doing. It's about building a creative life and having these things give you ideas that you pull into your own life and you pull into your own practice that helps you evolve, and not just being like, okay, what's the next book to read? What's the next book to read? Something I'm really adopting is reading deeply, which for me looks like reading things over and over again and having a few favorites that I want to explore deeper and I want to apply in different ways. You could go through these books every single day and apply a different principle, and it would take you a whole year at least to do that. You don't necessarily need to read more, but I think reading deeply is where a lot of expansion can happen. And when you encourage yourself to apply the teachings in new ways. So even if you have a book that you've already read, you've already loved, you've already got so much value from, when you come back to that a year later, a few months later, 10 years later, you're going to find new things and new ways to apply them to your life, because you can't jump in the same river twice, and you can't jump into the same book twice. You can't jump into the same mind twice. You have new ways to explore things. And when you have material to work from that is so fucking good and so potent. These books give you so much juice that you're going to be able to reach for over and over again and, you know, expand your creative practice. Become the artist you've always dreamed of. Have fun. Be playful. Think about thinking, you know? Okay, so let's get in. I'm going to kick us off with the most practical. This is basically the handbook for creativity and developing your own creative practice. This is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, who, side note, I only found out like a few months ago that she's actually James Cameron, the director's sister. So like their family is like cooking up something that's really working for them. But The Artist's Way, this gives you something that's really, really practical. It is basically 3 tools. What this is most known for is morning pages. So morning pages are basically you write 3 pages of just stream of consciousness. And the idea is that you want to get the noise and the mess out of your brain and like onto paper as a kind of cleansing of the mind, cleansing of the brain. So just get the junk out to clear the way. So then when you're sitting down to do your actual work, to do your actual creating, you can have some blank space to work with. You can have some clarity of space. The Artist Day, where you go out and you encourage yourself to be inspired, to be in the well, to, you know, fill your own creative juice up. And then there's also the creativity contract, which like I feel like people don't talk about as much, but it's very important because there's something really special and really powerful about making really actionable decisions with ourselves and telling ourselves this is the way things are going to be now. I have decided, having like an air of officiality to it. I find it really helps me be accountable and it really helps me step into new identities. You can do things like tattoo words on you. I have Creatrix tattooed on me, and that, you know, it forces me to step up to the plate to be able to be the bitch who has Creatrix tattooed on, you know, her collarbones. But then, of course, the act of writing a contract to yourself where you're telling yourself, I am a creative, I'm committing to being a creative, is a much simpler option to do. So the whole book basically follows a 12-week format. If you are in a place where you're like, I just really want to reconnect with my creativity, I feel like I've been a little bit stuck, a little bit stagnant, this is something that I revisit all of the time. I might actually go through it again in the next couple of weeks. It provides the perfect guideline for a 3-month reset, a 3-month way for you to really dive back into your creativity and build this practice of preparing yourself to create. What I love about the practices and the lessons and the framework that this book gives us is it's not actually telling you how to make your art, it's telling you how you can prepare to make your art. It's the things that go on before you sit down to create your work and preparing yourself. I like to think of it in the way of training. So when I'm training for pole dancing, I'm going to have a mix of classes. There's the choreo classes. They're the ones where you go and you dance it out to a song, right? Mostly you're learning things that you already know and you're dancing. You're putting them to a routine. It's my favorite, not gonna lie. But there's also, to be able to do that, to be able to come to choreo class and feel really confident and be able to actually have the strength and the ability to do these tricks. What's mostly going to help you is going to conditioning classes where you're doing drills and just sweating a shit ton and sliding down the pole, but you're learning what it feels like to do these specific movements repeatedly, and you're making it so your body and your brain knows what to do. So when you go to choreo class, you've already figured out those things. You've got stronger, you've figured your way of doing it, and now you can actually have fun and be expressive with it. This relationship of understanding that we actually have to put in work and effort to be able to build our skills, to build our foundation of understanding who we are and how we want to express ourselves. And then we can go and sit down and create, and it can flow effortlessly because we've put in the effort of building our skills, of building our practice, of clearing the noise from our brain so we can actually enjoy the creative process. The second book that I want to share with you is Creativity by Osho. Osho. So Osho is a spiritual teacher, and he has a bunch of these books on all different topics. I love all of them. I love Osho's teachings. He is such a bizarre, or was such a bizarre person, and there's like a documentary about him that is weird and very culty and all of those things. But I think if you look into the teachings of Osho and what it actually stands for, it's very much freedom based. It's actually really not a cult. But I really love his style of speaking, because I think a lot of these books are taken from, he'd do, at his commune, he'd do speeches every night for like 2-3 hours talking on certain topics. And I think what they've done is they've compiled all of those speeches and broken them into different books, so they're all on different topics. And obviously this is all the speeches and all of his writings compiled on the topic of creativity. So funny, just bizarre. Like, there are so many bizarre parts to this book, and I feel like it just adds to his style. Like, it makes you understand his way of expression and being his very weird self, which of course I love. Also, I'm very big on writing in books and making notes and understanding that when you buy a book, it is not precious. Like, don't be precious with it. Make fucking marks in it. You own this thing now. And this is very much the way I see creativity as well. Like, when something is a finished project, then it goes out to the audience, and the audience gets to experience it and, almost depending on what it is, collaborate with the project. And I used to be like, I would hate the idea of marking a book. I used to be so precious about my books. I used to be like, I wouldn't even dog ear a page. Now I'm like scribbling things. I'll write my own notes in it. I'll mark pages, whatever. I think even reading in that way is so freeing, because you're really using these things as tools. You're allowing yourself to interact with something. And in terms of learning something, I just think it's really helpful to be able to add my own things to it and really interact with the thing that I'm learning from, instead of like having this distant feeling where it's like we can't alter the thing. No, like, you get to alter it. It's your fucking book. Write in the pages, rip the pages out if you want to. I don't know why you want to, but you can if you want. Then what's really cool about when you've like highlighted a book and written notes in it is when you read it again, you will see so many parts where like different parts will jump out to you, and you'll be highlighting different parts and making notes about different parts. But then you'll also get this really cool thing of looking back on your previous markings and seeing like, oh, this was really significant to me at that time. I'll sit and think about the ways I have applied that, or maybe haven't applied that. And yeah, it just gives you your own relationship with a book. It's very great. It also becomes a lot more personal when you loan your books out to friends, and it's like they get the weird luxury of reading your scribbles. I don't know. Buy your own book if you don't want my scribbles. What I really like about this book is it gives a really beautiful spiritual perspective to creativity. And Osho's teachings feel very beautiful and spiritual, but they also feel very grounded in a way that I can relate to. And I think reading this book really helps me understand how exploring my creativity is in itself a spiritual practice, and that made it deepen so much, because I really see the importance of creativity even more. It's beautiful. It's quite hard to explain. Just read it. It's like spirituality, philosophy, weird stories, and there are truly so many ideas crammed into this book. I found that it took me quite a long time to read it, because I love to read as well with a notebook and to journal and write down my own ideas or write down my own interpretations as I go. And this book was like, I'd read a page and I'd have 1,000 different ideas, so many things that I wanted to figure out and explore further. And that is a great indication of a very juicy book. So check it out. And then the final book is the newest book. This book literally came out a matter of months ago, and maybe my favorite book ever written. This is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rubin. If you know me, if you've been around these parts, especially if you're in the Creatrix Coven, you have heard me talk about Rubin as often as possible. I bring him up so much. And since I've been reading this book, since January, since it came out, I've been talking about him even more. And you know what? I'm not sorry about it, because this book is amazing. Rick Rubin is amazing. I don't know if there's anybody whose style and approach to a career I admire and desire more than Rick Rubin. He is so inspiring to me. He is like the godfather of hip hop, which I can't. So this book is basically a combination of principles, so ways of seeing creativity and understanding who Rick Rubin is and how he's, developed this whole book of principles based on his career and his own exploration of creativity. Thinking about the people who he's being able to help through their own creative journey and how these lessons must have applied to them is just very exciting to me. And I had this book on pre-order and was so excited to read it. And I literally remember like counting down the days till it released, till it got delivered to my door. And when I opened it up, I literally remember like feeling so emotional that I get the luxury of reading a book by Rick Rubin. Like literally before I even cracked it open one page, I was like, bitch is about to cry. This is what I think about books so much. This is going to be like a whole just book appreciation episode, but we are so lucky that books exist. And if you have somebody that you admire or you like their perspective on something, if they have a book, buy that book and read that book, and don't even like don't even give it a second thought. A book is going to cost you like $20, $30, right? And you have somebody's entire career of information, of knowledge, of experience condensed into these pages that you can spend a couple of hours like poring over and over again. That is just unbelievable to me. It's the biggest luxury. And, if there's anyone I could sit down with and have a conversation, it would probably be Rick Rubin. And the fact that I can sit down whenever I want, crack it open and feel as if I am having a conversation and getting the lessons of a lifetime's worth of creativity from him, unbelievable. And there's so many parts of this, and I've had so many conversations with people who have also been reading this book over the last few months. Something that a lot of us have been saying is just how good he is at articulating creative principles. When you read this book, a lot of it is probably not going to be things that you've never thought of before. It's probably going to be things where it's like, oh, I felt that. I've had that feeling in a project, or I've wanted that feeling but haven't understood how to get it or how to work this thing out. What Rick Rubin has done is articulated creativity in a way that feels impossible. And I love that there are principles that will completely contradict the principle that comes before or after it, because that is the way creativity works. I love the freedom that it gives us to be able to figure out our own way of doing things, and understanding that there isn't a 10-step plan to being a creative person, and we get to just explore our own expression by learning from the ways other people have expressed themselves before, and using that as a guide that allows us to develop our own way of being, right? Way of being. Get it? So these are the free books. I recommend you get them if you haven't got them already. I absolutely recommend you to scribble in them, write in them, make notes with them, reread them over and over again, and have these as things that you grow alongside. It can be a real big temptation when you read something to feel like you have to apply everything. And I think for me, these books really give me the freedom of understanding it is impossible to apply everything all at once, and instead understanding it in a way that I can begin to apply these teachings and these principles a little bit in different ways and explore my own creative practice and use the tools they give me, or use the different ways of seeing something from a different, fresh perspective, and allow that to develop my own creative practice and my own way of expression. Check them out. Let me know how you go. And remember, you can be, do, and have anything and everything that you desire. I will speak to you in the next one. Bye.